Hello, this is Cathy from Get Down to Business Consulting, and I'm just going to go over some forms that you might want to use in your practice regarding HIPAA. I'm not a lawyer. These are just forms I've developed for my own practice. So if you have a lawyer, you may want to run them by them. But this gives you an idea of what you may want to develop. So the first thing is your policy and procedures. So for a larger practice, you're going to want to have a whole manual. But for a practice just of a single person, I just have like a single page to address the main issues. You can read it. So it just says I'm going to follow these policy and procedures, that I'm going to follow all the laws, that protecting my client's protected health information is really important to me. It's going to name me as the privacy and security officers. It says that my risk assessment is done annually, which is the minimal amount I would say that it probably needs to be done. I added that if there's a new piece of equipment that I'm going to look at things then also. My compliance file is going to be reviewed annually and documented. I'm going to have a contingency plan as far as securing files. If something were to happen to me or there was some sort of natural disaster, as far as what remains of my paper files. It says what I'm going to do with a breach, which is basically follow the law. It says I'm going to document all complaints on a designated form. I'm also going to show you in this packet. That I'm going to log all disclosures of protected health information in each client's file so that I can retrieve them if a client asks. That I'm going to keep all HIPAA documentation for a minimum of 6 years, which is what's required. That any businesses I work with that I'm going to have that have access to PHI are going to have a BAA on file. And then I'm going to participate in a training on HIPAA every 2 years. As therapists, we're used to having releases of information, but right now it's just better off to have an authorization to disclose protected health information. A lot of the organizations such as CAMFT have examples of this online also. This is my version. So first is patient information, and then having the client check whether they're their actual client or it's a client representative. Who's going to disclose the information? So in this case, it's my form, so it's going to be me, my information filled in there. Who's going to be receiving the information? So you're going to put in the other medical provider or whomever else the client is signing a release for. Some specificity as far as information to be shared, treatment, diagnosis, current status, things like that you might want to mention. If records have any sort of HIV or drug and alcohol information, the client has to specifically sign off on those so they can say yes or no there. Why you're disclosing the information. For me, I often write it's coordination of care because it's usually between me and another doctor, or a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I have it expire a year after. That's generally pretty good practice. And then the client's rights so that they can revoke the authorization at any time. Of course, any information that was already released, there's nothing you can do about that. That if you release information to another doctor's office, etc., you recognize that it could be redisclosed and you have no control over that. That you don't actually need a release for billing and those issues as far as HIPAA. That the client has a right to have a signed copy of the release. And then room for the signature and a representative if that's involved in the person doing the release. So the next potential form, this is one you may or may not want to develop. It's your account of disclosures. So if a client asks you who information was disclosed to, this is just a form on what you found. And it has the, it refers back to your notice of privacy practices that you don't have to disclose claims and things like that. A HIPAA complaint form, you should probably have this one developed. It's just a matter of having a written form for them to make a complaint, letting them know their rights to file a complaint with HHS. I include the link there rather than just the address. Encouraging them to talk to their therapist first and letting them know that there's not any, you won't retaliate for them making a complaint, and they're also entitled to receive a copy of this complaint. So just asking them their general demographics, what the problem is, what they would like to see done about the problem. And you're going to fill in your own privacy officer and phone number there, and that person has 30 days to respond. This is one that sort of maybe it doesn't really often come up depending on your clientele, but if your client requests an amendment of health information, so they've seen their information and they believe something is incorrect in it, they have the right to request that you amend it. So just, again, their demographics, what they would like amended, the dates, why they're asking, like is it incorrect, incomplete, outdated, specifically why, and what they want it to say, and and a signature. If you deny that request, then there's a form for denial. I mean, this is not a bad one to have just because there are very specific reasons stated in the law that you can kind of deny, and also regarding their rights to file a complaint again. So it's not a bad form for you to just have somewhere. Hopefully you're not going to use it much. Denial of access to protected health information. You should really have this one because there are reasons that are subject to review and are not subject to review, and those are, again, specifically in the laws. Hopefully you're not really denying this much because it's very restricted in who can, under what circumstances you can deny, and the clients do have a right to, again, file a complaint or request that you have a review by another licensed behavioral health provider. So we're gonna hit that, and then we're gonna go over to here. So this is just some of the logs. So this is just a basic complaint log. You can just sort of set this up on your own, like the date of the complaint, who complained, what their complaint was, and what the outcome was. So just so you have that somewhere. Again, hopefully you don't need it. Your compliance log, this you should have. So just reminding you of some tasks you should be doing every year, your security assessment, your following up on any risks you found, reviewing your compliance file, updating your forms, and any HIPAA training, and then just sort of any notes or dates. And again, if you update your forms, you want that to go into your compliance file, and any certificates from HIPAA training should also go into your compliance file. Finally, your risk assessment, any electronic, well, actually it's not even electronic, any file cabinet, electronic thing that has any PHI in it. What are any possible issues? So with a file cabinet, it could be the office is broken into. Is it locked? Does the landlord have access? A phone obviously could be stolen. So that's going to go into the issues. How likely is a breach? Your office being broken into is probably not too likely. Losing a phone is generally somewhat likely, if not highly likely. What's your impact level if it's breached? Do you have all your client information in your phone? Do you have no client information in your phone? What are the solutions you've come up with? And if it's a resolvable issue, then when you resolved it. So this is just a quick overview of some forms you may want to have in your practice to address HIPAA. Again, if you have a lawyer, run them by them. And thanks for listening.